The strangest part is how normal everything seemed right before it all fell apart. I wasn't expecting warm hugs or any real emotional connection when I agreed to dinner, but I definitely wasn't ready for what actually happened. A situation that, looking back, feels like the most insidious kind of trap. When life looks ordinary, you drop your guard. That's precisely when you get caught. The drive to my parents' house was a familiar 45 minutes. I used most of it to practice polite answers to the questions I knew were coming. How's work? It's fine. Seeing anyone? Not at the moment. When are you going to come by more often? Soon. Over the years, I had perfected these deflections, turning them into a kind of art. Each answer was fine-tuned to shut down the conversation before it could escalate into a fight. I parked on the street, even with the driveway sitting empty. It was an old habit. Growing up, the driveway was reserved for real company, a category I never seemed to fit into. The house was exactly as I remembered. Beige vinyl siding, dark green shutters, and the tacky garden gnome my mother adored, standing sentinel by the front porch. Normal, boring, safe. I stepped inside, and my mom's voice immediately echoed from the kitchen. We're just about to sit down. Come on in. Come in. Her tone was cheerful, as if I were arriving at a lively party, but we all knew this was just another mandatory family dinner. The smell hit me first. Roasted chicken, her standard meal for family get-togethers. It wasn't fancy enough for a holiday, but it was a clear step up from her usual weeknight casseroles. My dad stood up from his chair as I walked into the dining room, but his movement was a fraction too slow, as if he was debating whether we were at a hugging stage or still sticking to polite nods. We nodded. Naturally. The discomfort between us had hardened over the years, settling into this rigid, formal dance. We were close enough to be called family, yet distant enough to sidestep any genuine connection. My sister was already sitting at the table, her eyes glued to her phone with the kind of practiced boredom she had mastered as a teenager and still wore at 23. She had on a designer sweater I'd seen on her Instagram, one that probably cost more than my entire month's grocery bill. She glanced up, a flicker of acknowledgement, before her attention snapped back to the screen, giving me the barest minimum of her time. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I answered. Her indifference didn't faze me. I wasn't there to make friends. I had abandoned that hope a long time ago. The table was set with the good china, the plates with the delicate blue flowers around the edges that only came out for guests. My chair was already pulled out for me. A glass sat at my place, filled with cranberry juice, just as it always was. It wasn't mixed with anything festive, not presented in a cute or thoughtful way, just plain juice, the kind I liked when I was a kid. The deep red liquid reflected the light from the chandelier, looking innocent and harmless. My mom offered a smile that felt rehearsed, part of a performance of closeness we were all acting in. I noticed she'd cut her hair. It was shorter, with fresh highlights that made her look younger, or maybe just less worn out. "You still like cranberry juice, right?" she asked. I nodded. I hadn't had any in months, but this wasn't the moment to start that conversation. These dinners were about upholding an illusion, not shattering it. We all took our seats. The meal was served. It was simple food, chicken, roasted potatoes, and a side of green beans my dad still pretended to like, even though we all knew he didn't. He had never been a fan of vegetables, but admitting that would be admitting my mother had been cooking him food he disliked for 3 decades. It was easier for him to just chew and swallow. "So," my mom started, easing into her chair with the poised air of someone about to lead a meeting, "tell us what you've been up to." "Not a whole lot," I said, slicing into my chicken. "Same job, same apartment. Still working at that tech company?" my dad asked, despite already knowing the answer. We had this exact conversation 3 months ago at Easter dinner. Still there, and they're treating you okay? I can't complain. My sister let out a quiet snort, her gaze still fixed on her phone. Must be nice to have job security. And there it was, the first subtle jab of the night. I ignored it. The conversation stayed light and superficial. How's your job? Still in that same apartment? The traffic on Route 9 has been terrible lately, hasn't it? I gave my answers. I smiled. I even managed a small laugh when my sister told a story about a coworker getting trapped in the revolving doors at her office building. Not because it was funny, but because I knew my role. I was the quiet one, the dependable one, the one who never made waves. Remember when you got stuck in the bathroom at Grandma's house? My mom added, laughing at the memory. You were what, 7? Screaming bloody murder. I was 6, I corrected her softly. My memory of it was different. Less screaming, more quiet terror as I jiggled the doorknob, sure I would be stuck in there forever. But every family has its own set of myths. Stories repeated so many times the truth gets worn away. Your dad had to take the door right off the hinges, she went on, lost in the past. You were so embarrassed. I still am, I said, which earned a polite laugh. See, I could play the game. My dad then began his own story about a plumbing disaster at his office, something about a burst pipe and a very important client. I'd heard it before, but I nodded along, making the right noises of sympathy and amusement. This was what passed for connection in our family, a collection of shared anecdotes that kept us all gliding on the surface, never daring to go deep enough to find out what was lurking underneath. Halfway through my dad's usual complaint about the roadwork on Route 9, my phone vibrated in my lap. Without thinking much of it, I glanced at it under the table. It was probably work, or maybe my roommate asking if we were out of milk. The message was short. There was no name, no emojis or casual slang, just sentences that ended with cold, hard periods, as if written by someone trying desperately to sound calm. Get up and leave now. Don't say anything to your parents. I stared at the screen, then read it a second time. The world around me kept moving. My mom was nodding along to whatever my dad was ranting about. My sister was chewing her food with a mechanical, detached rhythm. Everything looked like a normal family dinner. And yet, I was being told to run, as if the house itself had suddenly become a trap. The number wasn't saved in my contacts. The area code was 732. It was local, but I didn't recognize it. My thumb hovered over the screen. Should I block it? Delete it? Reply? Earth to Sarah, my sister said, and I looked up to see 3 sets of eyes fixed on me. Sorry, what was that? Mom asked if you wanted more potatoes. Oh, no, I'm fine, thanks. I slipped the phone back into my lap, but the words of the message were seared into my brain. Get up and leave now. Why? Who was this? How did they have my number? I didn't move. Not at first. A dozen possible explanations ran through my mind. It could be a prank, a wrong number, some kind of phishing scam, or the beginning of some weird social experiment I hadn't signed up for. But deep down, a knot was tightening in my stomach. The message felt urgent, it felt real, and for some reason, I knew it was meant for me. Actually, I said, pushing my chair back from the table, I'll be right back. I just need to use the restroom. Already? My mom asked. We just started eating. Yeah, sorry. It was a long drive, no one argued. No one even looked up as I stood. I took my phone with me and went upstairs because the upstairs bathroom had a door that closed properly and a lock that didn't stick. And because if you wanted to have a private conversation in this house, it wasn't going to be on the first floor, where every sound carried through the paper-thin walls. The stairs creaked in all the familiar spots. The third step, the seventh step, the landing. I had learned to skip them as a teenager when I was sneaking in after curfew, but now I didn't care. Let them hear me. Let them think I was just going to the bathroom. I locked the door, sat on the edge of the tub, and looked at the message again. The bathroom was a time capsule of my childhood. The same navy blue towels, the same seashell-shaped soap dispenser, the same faint scent of my mother's lavender air freshener trying to cover up something less pleasant. My finger hesitated over the number. Then I pressed call. It rang once. My heart was pounding against my ribs. "You're still in there?" The voice was male, anxious and familiar, but I couldn't place it right away. "Who is this?" "It's Mark. Mark, my sister's boyfriend. Or maybe ex-boyfriend." It was always hard to tell. They had been on and off for the last year, their relationship status changing as frequently as her Instagram profile picture. What the hell is happening? His voice was hushed and tight, as if he were hiding somewhere he shouldn't be. Maybe outside. I could hear the wind and the faint sound of cars in the distance. "You have to leave. Just stand up, walk out the door. Don't drink anything. Just go." "Mark, you're scaring me. What? Don't drink the juice." My mouth instantly went dry. I hadn't had any of the juice, not yet, but I was about to. Another sip or two and I would have, just to be polite, just to stop them from asking questions. Why? I can't. Just trust me on this, please. "What is this?" I asked, my voice getting louder before I caught myself. "Quieter," I said. "Why are you even... What's going on?" He hesitated. I could hear his breathing, quick and shallow. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "Sarah, I shouldn't be calling you. I shouldn't... God, if they found out. If who found out? Mark, you're not making any sense. Your family. They're... Look, I heard something. Last week, when I was over at the house, my sister had told me he'd come by to get some of his stuff. They had broken up again for good this time, she'd said. What did you hear?" Another pause. This one was longer. When he finally spoke, the words tumbled out in a rush. "It's the juice. I think they put something in it. Alcohol, maybe, or something stronger. I don't know, but I think they're planning on you passing out." The room around me was completely silent. The white tile floor, the quiet whir of the ceiling fan I hadn't noticed before, the distant clinking of silverware from downstairs. Normal sounds, the sounds of a family dinner, but Mark's words had twisted them into something else, something sinister. "That's crazy," I said, but even as the words came out, I knew they weren't true. Not completely. "Why?" I finally asked. Another short silence. I could imagine him running a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd seen him do 100 times at family events. "They want to unlock your phone, with your fingerprint. For what?" "Sarah, I have to go. Just, please, leave. Now, tell them you feel sick. Tell them whatever you want, but get out of that house. Mark, wait." But he had already hung up. I sat there for a while after the call ended, long enough to feel the cold of the bathroom tiles seeping through my jeans, long enough to hear my mother's laughter float up from downstairs, bright and fake, long enough to know I was facing a choice and I had already made it. I couldn't leave. Not yet. If I just walked out now, pretending to be sick, they'd know something was up. They would change their plan, whatever it was, and I would never find out the truth, but I could play their game. I could pretend to drink the juice, pretend to pass out, and see exactly what my family had in store for me. The idea should have filled me with terror. Instead, I felt a strange sense of calm, detached, as if I were watching someone else's life play out from a safe distance. I stood up, smoothed out my clothes, and looked at my reflection in the mirror. It was the same face I wore to every family dinner, the same neutral expression, the same careful smile. But behind my eyes, something had changed. The benefit of the doubt I had always given them, the assumption that despite our issues, we were still family, that was gone. Before I went back downstairs, I did two things. First, I turned on an audio recording app on my phone, one I had helped develop at work. It would run silently in the background, activated by certain keywords. Phone was one, money was another. Second, I checked my banking apps. All of them used my fingerprint for login, for convenience. I couldn't turn that off now, it would look too suspicious when they checked. But I could add another layer of protection. Two-factor authentication with the codes sent to my email instead of as a text message. They might be able to get into my phone, but they couldn't get into my email without my password. My hands were steady as I worked. This was what I did for a living, after all. I built systems. I found vulnerabilities. I protected data. I just never imagined I would have to protect it from my own family. When I got back to the dining room, they were deep in a conversation about some neighbor's divorce. My mother loved gossip. She collected it the way some people collect stamps. She looked up as I sat down, her sharp eyes studying my face, not missing a thing. "Are you okay? You were gone for a while." "Yeah, I'm fine. Just some work stuff." I gestured vaguely toward my phone before putting it in my pocket. "You know how it is. You work too hard," she said. But her focus was already drifting back to the story. Something about hidden bank accounts and a secret girlfriend. I picked up my glass of cranberry juice, raised it to my lips, and pretended to take a sip. The trick was in the movement of my throat, the slight tilt of my head. I had learned how to fake drink in college, back when peer pressure and a low tolerance for alcohol collided. It was amazing how that skill had come in handy. "So what do you think?" my sister asked suddenly. I realized they were all looking at me again. I had missed part of the conversation. "About what?" "About Tom and Linda. Do you think she knew he was having an affair?" "Tom and Linda, the neighbors." "Right. She must have had her suspicions," I said, playing along. "People always know, deep down." My mother nodded with a wise expression. "That's what I said. You can't hide something like that from the person you live with." The irony was thick enough to cut with a knife. I took another fake sip of juice, a bigger one this time. Let them see me drinking. Let them believe their plan was working. The conversation drifted through more gossip, complaints about work, and the rising price of groceries. Normal dinner table conversation. My dad had a second helping. My sister actually put her phone down long enough to have dessert. A store-bought apple pie my mother apologized for as if she had committed a federal crime. "I just didn't have the time to bake one from scratch," she said. "It's fine, Mom," I reassured her, though we both knew she hadn't baked a pie in years. Through it all, I put on a show. Fake sip after fake sip. I gradually slowed down my answers, let my eyelids get heavy. It wasn't difficult. I was exhausted. The stress of keeping up this act of pretending everything was fine while waiting for them to make their move was draining me. About 30 minutes after I came back from the bathroom, I let out my first yawn. "Sorry," I mumbled. "I don't know why I'm so tired." My parents shot a quick look at each other. It was so fast I might have missed it if I hadn't been watching for it. "Long week?" my dad asked. "Yeah, a really long one." Another yawn, a little sway in my chair. I knocked my fork onto the floor and took too long to pick it up, moving like someone trying to swim through honey. "Maybe you should go lie down for a bit," my mother suggested. "You look pale." "I'm okay," I protested weakly. but I let my words slur just a little. I just need a minute. That's when I made my move. I pushed my chair back from the table, stood up too fast, and swayed for dramatic effect. Whoa, I'm dizzy. 3 chairs scraped against the floor at the same time. They were around me in an instant, like wolves closing in on their prey, all fake concern and helping hands. "Let's get you over to the couch," my mother said. "I can walk," I insisted, but I let them steer me, let them think I was fading. The living room couch was old, made of brown leather that had seen better days. They helped me onto it as if I were made of fragile glass. Someone, my sister, laid a throw blanket over my legs. It was the same blanket I used to hide under as a kid when I was homesick from school, watching movies. "Just get some rest," my mother murmured. "Close your eyes." I did. But first I made sure my phone was within reach, lying face down on the coffee table, easy for anyone who wanted to grab it. Then I started the most difficult performance of my life. I had to play unconscious, while every nerve in my body was screaming at me to run. The key was my breathing, slow, deep, and steady. I had read somewhere that people could fake being dead by controlling their breathing, slowing their heart rate through meditation. I wasn't that skilled, but I could manage faking unconsciousness. I counted my breaths, 10, 20, 30. The room fell quiet, except for the grandfather clock in the corner marking the time with its steady tick-tock. "Is she asleep?" my mom whispered. The couch dipped as someone sat down near my feet. "Sarah?" my sister said, a little louder. She was testing me. I didn't move. I kept my breathing even as my heart felt like it was trying to hammer its way out of my chest. "Yeah, she's out cold," my sister confirmed. "Okay," my dad said from somewhere near the doorway. "Let's do this fast." There it was, the confirmation that this wasn't a spontaneous act, not a crime of opportunity. They had planned this, all 3 of them. I heard the soft sound of my phone being picked up from the table. Then footsteps getting closer. The cushion next to my shoulder sank as someone, my sister I could tell by her perfume, leaned over me. "Give me her hand," she said. Fingers wrapped around my wrist, lifting it gently but firmly. I stayed limp, letting them move me around like a doll. My thumb was pressed against something cool and smooth, the screen of my phone. A pause, then a faint vibration against my thumb. Unlocked. "Okay," my sister whispered. "I'm in." There was something quietly horrifying about the whole thing. The casual way they coordinated, the fact that they didn't even hesitate. It was like they had practiced this. How many times had they talked about it? Over dinner? On the phone? In text messages I would never get to see? "Check her banking apps first," my dad instructed. He had moved closer, his voice now coming from right behind the couch, tapping. So much tapping. I could picture my sister's perfectly manicured nails flying across the screen, invading every boundary, every private part of my digital life. She has Chase, Bank of America, and some kind of investment account, my sister reported. "Let's start with Chase. That's where her checking account is." "How do you know that?" my mother asked. "She told me once. Plus, I saw her deposit a check there last Christmas. Last Christmas, when I had given her money to help with her car payment. She'd been watching me even then, storing away information to use later. More tapping. Then, "Okay, I'm in the app." "How much is in there?" my mother asked. A low whistle came from my sister. "More than we thought. A lot more." "What's the routing number?" my dad said under his breath. "All business now. She has everything saved. This is way too easy. Too easy. Like taking candy from a baby or money from your own daughter." "How much are we taking?" my mom asked. For the first time, I heard a hint of hesitation in her voice. It wasn't guilt. It was more like caution. "Not all of it," my dad said. "Just enough to take care of it." 12,000, my sister said. That's what I need. $12,000, and this all goes away. Her gambling debts, the reason for all this. $12,000 to make her problems vanish, and the only cost was drugging and robbing her own sister. Make it 11, my mother suggested. It's less suspicious. She might just think she paid some bills or something. They were talking about stealing from me the way other families talk about splitting the bill at a restaurant. So matter of fact, so practical. Fine. 11,000 to... My sister paused. What's the account information again? My dad rattled off a series of numbers. They had come with everything they needed. This wasn't a desperate last-minute decision. This was a premeditated crime. She won't even know, my mom said, more to herself than to the others. If it goes through without a problem, she'll just think she transferred it herself. Maybe she paid a bill and forgot about it. I told you, my sister said with a note of satisfaction. She always blacks out after one drink. We just needed her to sleep through it. There it was. They had said it out loud, all three of them, together, my family. A tap, a pause. Then my sister swore under her breath. What is it? My dad demanded. It's asking for a code, some kind of verification thing. A code? My mom sounded confused. Like a password? No, it's like two-factor authentication, my sister muttered. It says it's sending a code to her email. Can you get into her email? Not without her password. And before you ask, no, the fingerprint doesn't work for that. My dad let out a soft, frustrated sigh. Try another app. Try the Bank of America one. Tapping. Still more tapping. I could feel their frustration growing. It's the same thing. Everything is locked down with this two-factor crap. What about Venmo or PayPal? Checking? No, same thing. Everything needs a code. They sat in silence for a moment. I could feel their eyes on me, wondering if I was going to wake up, if I knew what was happening. I kept breathing. In, outside, outside. Try the investment account, my dad suggested. Maybe that one's different. It wasn't. I had locked everything down. They could look, they could see the balances that made them whistle, but they couldn't touch a single cent. This is useless, my sister spat. We drugged her for nothing. Don't say it like that, my mother protested. How else am I supposed to say it? We put alcohol in her juice, which could have killed her, by the way, with her condition. And we can't even get to her money. Keep your voice down, my dad warned. Why? She's passed out. You saw how much she drank. Actually, I hadn't drunk a drop, but they didn't know that. They had seen what they wanted to see, what they expected to see. Their guilty daughter finally paying what they thought she owed. Just put the phone back, my mother said. We'll figure something else out. What else? My sister's voice was rising, laced with panic. I need that money. You know what's going to happen if I don't pay. We know, my dad said grimly. We'll come up with something. They put the phone back on the table, right where they had found it. There were no apologies, no second thoughts, no hesitation. Just the quiet efficiency of people who had crossed a moral line and just kept walking. I waited. I counted to 100, then to 200. I let them get settled back in their chairs, let them reassure themselves that their plan had just hit a small bump, nothing more. Then I opened my eyes. I blinked slowly, like someone coming out of a deep sleep. I sat up carefully, putting one hand to my head. What happened? I asked, my voice small and confused. They all turned to look at me, their faces masks of such perfect concern that it made my stomach churn. You passed out, my mother said, rushing to my side. Just for a few minutes. How do you feel? Weird, I said, which was the truth, like I just blacked out for a second. You were really tired, my dad offered. Maybe you're coming down with something. I nodded, playing along. Maybe. I should probably get home. Are you sure you're okay to drive? My sister asked. The same sister who had just tried to steal $11,000 from me. You could stay here for the night. The idea of sleeping in this house with these people made my skin crawl. No, I'm fine. I just need some fresh air. I stood up slowly, testing my balance. I had stood up too fast, and I was still a little shaky from the adrenaline and stress. They watched me like hawks, probably wondering if I was going to collapse again. Actually, I said, reaching for my phone, I should check in with work, just to make sure nothing urgent came up. I unlocked it with my fingerprint right in front of them. I saw my sister's eyes follow the movement. Then I made a show of checking my email, frowning at the screen. Is everything okay? My mother asked. Yeah, it's just... I have a bunch of two-factor authentication notifications. That's weird. I looked up at them, keeping my expression puzzled, not accusatory. It's probably just a glitch. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's smile froze on her face. My father cleared his throat. My sister suddenly became fascinated with her own phone. Technology, my dad said weakly. Always something. Yeah, I agreed. Always something. I gathered my things slowly and deliberately. My purse, my phone, my jacket. Every movement was careful and precise, as if I were still shaking off the effects of their drugged juice. At the door, we went through the ritual of goodbye hugs. It wasn't planned, it just happened. A force of habit, of tradition, of muscle memory taking over where conscious thought had failed. My mother hugged me first, her arms tight around my shoulders. She smelled the same as she always did. White Shoulders perfume and coffee. For a split second, I was 8 years old again, running to her with a scraped knee. She had cleaned it, put a Band-Aid on it, and told me I was brave. Drive safe, she whispered. My father's hug was quick and awkward, more of a pat on the shoulder than a real embrace. But his hand stayed on my back for an extra second, and I remembered teaching him how to use his first smartphone. How proud he had been when he sent his first text message. Let us know when you get home, he said. My sister barely looked up from her phone, but she accepted the half-hearted hug I gave her. Her body was tense, rigid with the stress of her failed plan. Or maybe with guilt. I wanted to believe it was guilt. See you, she mumbled. Yeah, I said, see you. But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. This was the last time, the last hug, the last goodbye. After tonight, there was no coming back from this. I almost broke down right then. I almost asked them why they had chosen money over me. Why $12,000 was worth more than 26 years of being their daughter. Why they had sat around their kitchen table and planned to violate me in my sleep. But I didn't. I smiled. I waved. I walked to my car as if nothing had changed. The drive home was a blur. I had to pull over twice. Once to throw up, the stress finally hitting my system, and once to cry. Great, heaving sobs that left me breathless and empty. When I finally got back to my apartment, I sat in my car for another 20 minutes, just staring at my phone. At the recording app that had captured everything. Their words, their plan, their complete lack of remorse. I had thought that knowing the truth would make me feel better, vindicated. Instead, I just felt hollow. But I knew what I had to do. The police station was quiet at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. I parked under a streetlight and walked in as if I were there to pick up a lost wallet. Normal, calm. Not like someone whose entire world had just been destroyed. The officer at the front desk looked tired, like she was at the end of her shift. She sat up a little straighter when I said I needed to report a crime. What kind of crime? attempted theft, and assault, I guess. They drugged me. That got her attention. When did this happen? About an hour ago. Do you need medical attention? We can call. No, I cut her off. I didn't actually drink it, but I have proof that they tried. She blinked. Okay, and do you know who did this? This was the moment, the point of no return. Once I said the words, I couldn't take them back. Yes, I said, my parents and my sister. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and final. The officer's expression changed from professional concern to something more complex. I see, she said slowly. Why don't you have a seat? I'll get someone to take your statement. They put me in a small room with uncomfortable chairs and a water cooler that gurgled every few minutes. Detective Martinez was kind and patient, and he didn't rush me as I told him the story. He took notes in a small notebook, asking for clarification every now and then. When I played the recording for him, he listened to the entire thing without saying a word. His expression got grimmer with every passing minute. You were smart, he said when it was over. The recording, the two-factor authentication, that was very smart. I work in tech, I said, as if that explained everything, as if being smart about security could somehow make up for being so stupid about family. Are you willing to press charges? Another moment of truth. Yes. He nodded. It's the right thing to do. What they did, that's serious. Multiple felonies. My parents. My sister. The words didn't seem to fit together in my mind. What happens now? We'll need to take a formal statement, get a copy of that recording. Then we'll bring them in for questioning. Tonight? Probably tomorrow morning. Do you have a safe place to stay? Safe, because my family was now a threat that I needed to be protected from. Yeah, my apartment. They don't have a key. He gave me his card and told me to call if I remembered anything else, or if they tried to contact me. Then he asked the question I had been dreading. Why do you think they did this? I could have lied. I could have made up some story about a family argument or a misunderstanding. But I was done with lies, done with pretending. My sister has gambling debts, $12,000. She asked me for the money last month and I said no. I guess they found another way. He made another note. Has she asked you for money before? All my life, I said, and once I started, I couldn't stop. The words just poured out of me. Years of expectations, of being the responsible one, the one who saved and sacrificed and gave until there was nothing left to give. The detective listened, nodding sometimes, just letting me talk until I had no more words. You did the right thing, he said finally. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you did. I left the station with a case number and the promise of a follow-up call. The drive home was quieter this time. No crying, no pulling over. Just the radio playing softly and the weight of what I had done settling over me like a heavy blanket. My phone started buzzing before I even got to my apartment. 3 missed calls from my mom, 2 from my dad, a text from my sister. Did you make it home okay? Playing innocent, as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't just tried to rob me. I didn't answer. Not yet. The calls kept coming all night. I put my phone on silent and watched the screen light up again and again. They left voicemails that I didn't listen to. They sent texts that I didn't read. By morning, the tone had changed. My mother's text at 6 a.m., "The police are here." What did you do? My father, 30 minutes later, "We need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding." My sister, "I can't believe you did this. You've ruined everything." I texted back once, to all 3 of them. "You drugged me. You tried to steal from me. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime." Then I blocked them. All of them. Every phone number. every social media account, every possible way they could contact me. It was surprisingly easy. Just a few taps and they were gone from my digital life. The physical separation would take more time. Over the next few days, I learned things I never wanted to know, like how to file a restraining order, how to change the locks on my doors, even though they didn't have keys. The paranoia had already set in. How to freeze my credit, just in case they had information about me I didn't know about. I called in sick to work, and then I told my boss the truth when she called to check on me. She gave me time off, no questions asked, and recommended the company's employee assistance program. It turned out they had counselors who specialized in family trauma. It's more common than you'd think, the counselor told me in our first session. Family financial abuse is seriously underreported abuse. It was such a heavy word for what just felt like betrayal. The legal process moved much faster than I thought it would. The recording was irrefutable. The bank logs showed multiple failed attempts to get into my accounts. My sister's gambling debts were well documented. She had been borrowing money from co-workers, friends, anyone who would lend it to her. My parents had taken out a home equity loan to help her before, but that well had run dry. They were arrested on a Wednesday morning. I know because my cousin texted me, one of the few family members whose number I hadn't blocked. "Is it true?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. "I'm so sorry," she said. And then, "I understand why you did it." That surprised me. I had expected anger, accusations of betrayal. Instead, she told me about her own experiences, smaller things I had never known about, money borrowed and never paid back, guilt trips when she couldn't help. The family pattern went beyond just my immediate family. "You're brave," she said. "I wish I had been that brave." The word didn't sit right with me. Brave. Was it brave to protect yourself? Or was it just necessary? They didn't fight the charges. Their lawyer, probably seeing that the evidence was overwhelming, arranged a plea deal. Probation, fines, community service. No jail time, which was both a relief and a disappointment. Part of me wanted them to be punished. Another part of me just wanted it to be over. The restraining orders were granted without any problems. They couldn't contact me, come near my apartment or my work, or have other people contact me for them. On paper, I was safe. In reality, safety felt like a foreign concept. I moved 2 months later, not far, just to a different part of the city, but far enough that I wouldn't run into them at the grocery store or the gas station. My new apartment had better security, a doorman, cameras, the whole 9 yards. It cost more, but my peace of mind was worth the price. Work became my sanctuary. I threw myself into my projects, stayed late, and volunteered for everything. My manager eventually pulled me aside, worried about burnout. "I'm fine," I insisted. "No," she said gently. "You're not, and that's okay." She was right. I wasn't fine. I was functional, but that's not the same thing. Therapy helped. Slowly, I learned how to set boundaries, to recognize that what happened wasn't my fault, that protecting yourself isn't selfish. My therapist had me write letters that I would never send, saying all the things I couldn't say that night. Why? I wrote to my mother. Was I such a terrible daughter that drugging me seemed like a reasonable option? What did I do wrong? "I'm sorry," I wrote to my sister. "I'm sorry that your addiction brought you to this point. I'm sorry that I couldn't save you. I'm sorry that saving myself meant I had to let you fall. I loved you," I wrote to my father. Past tense. I loved you and you chose to hurt me. How am I supposed to reconcile that? 6 months later, I ran into Mark at a coffee shop. My sister's ex-boyfriend, the one who had warned me. He looked tired, older. We just stared at each other over the hiss of the espresso machine and the buzz of the morning crowd. "Hi," he said finally. "Hi. "Can we talk for a minute?" I almost said no, but my curiosity got the better of me. We found a table in the corner, away from the other customers. "I'm sorry," he started, "for everything. I should have warned you sooner." "Why did you?" I asked. "Warn me, I mean. You could have just stayed out of it." He stared down at his coffee. "Because it was wrong, and because—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Because I saw the way they talked about you, like you were a resource, not a person. Your sister, she would calculate how much she could get from you like it was a math problem, and your parents just let her." "How long did you know?" "About the gambling?" "For months." "About the plan?" "I overheard them talking about it the week before. I tried to talk her out of it. Told her she was crazy. She said I didn't understand family. She was right," I said. "You don't understand that kind of family. You should be grateful." We parted with an awkward handshake. I never saw him again, but I was glad he had been there that night. One person who chose to do the right thing, even when it was hard. The gossip eventually got back to me, passed along through cousins and old family friends. My parents had sold the house to pay for their legal fees and what was left of my sister's debts. They had moved to a smaller place on the other side of town. My sister had lost her job in finance. It turns out that employers don't like it when you get arrested for attempted theft. She was working in retail, living with my parents again. Part of me felt guilty. Most of me didn't. I built a new life. I made friends who didn't know my history. I dated carefully, always on the lookout for red flags I might have missed before. I learned to cook recipes that weren't my mother's. I decorated my apartment with art she would have hated. I created new traditions that were all my own. The hardest part was the holidays. That first Christmas, I volunteered at a homeless shelter, surrounding myself with strangers so I wouldn't have to be alone. The second year I traveled. I spent the week between Christmas and New Year's in Iceland, watching the northern lights and pretending I didn't remember what my mother's stuffing tasted like. By the third year, I had found my own rhythm. I had friends who had become my chosen family. I had a boyfriend who understood why I was weird about money, why I triple-checked the locks on my door, why I didn't drink, even at celebrations. I had a life that was smaller in some ways than the one I had imagined, but it was entirely mine. I still have the recording. It's saved in multiple places, backed up to the cloud and on hard drives. Not because I need it anymore, but because sometimes I start to doubt myself. Sometimes I wonder if I overreacted, if I should have handled it differently. Then I listen to their voices, so casual and calculating, talking about my unconscious body like it was just a problem they needed to solve. And I remember, they were my family. They were supposed to protect me. Instead, they became the threat I needed protection from. The last time I looked at their social media, a moment of weakness on a bad night, my sister had posted a quote about forgiveness. "Family is forever," it said, written over a picture of a sunset. The comments were full of hearts and people agreeing with her. I almost laughed. Then I closed the app and blocked them again, just to be sure. Family isn't forever, not when they drug your drink, not when they try to steal your future, not when they see you as a bank account instead of a person. Sometimes cutting ties isn't cruel. Sometimes it's survival. I survived, and despite everything, or maybe because of everything, that feels like enough. The recording still sits on my phone, a digital ghost of the night that everything changed. I don't listen to it anymore. I don't need to. The words are burned into my memory, along with the taste of a cranberry juice I'll never drink again, and the weight of my mother's last hug. They made their choice that night. They chose money over me. They chose to solve their problems by making me their victim. and I made my choice. I chose myself. It wasn't easy. It still isn't. But it was the right thing to do. And in the end, that's all that matters. End of story.